According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Dolly the sheep became the world's first cloned animal in 1997. Once it was discovered that cloning animals is possible, people began wondering if we could clone humans as well, and with this came a question of ethics. Is it ethical to clone humans? Today, I will be convincing you as to why it is morally permissible to clone humans for the purposes of organ banks and rearing offspring. First, I'll explain why cloning for organ banks is morally permissible. In order for you to understand this, you need to know what an organ bank is. An organ bank is essentially a body made from stem cells that is used for the purpose of providing duplicate organs for another living person. To explain to you why this is morally permissible, I will walk you through a thought experiment. Let's say that a button comes off of your favorite shirt, and it needs a new button to function, and to function aesthetically, it needs a button that matches the shirt. So, you go to the store, and you rebuy that shirt, and you take a button from the new shirt and put it back onto your old one. This is morally permissible because that old shirt, it has no consciousness, no feelings towards that button. It's not going to miss that button, and it's not going to be aware that it was bought just to be used as a means to an end. This same concept can be applied to organ banks. A clone being used as an organ bank is not a person, as they are a manufactured body that will never have, according to philosopher James Humber, the capacity for consciousness, let alone the capacities that make something a person, such as the capacity for thought and self-consciousness. Next, I'll talk about why cloning for offspring is also ethical. The main argument against cloning for having genetically related offspring is that there are children in the world who are waiting to be adopted. The problem with this argument is that if it was morally impermissible to clone in order to have a genetically related child because there are other children in the world waiting to be adopted, then it would also have to be morally impermissible for a couple to have a child through any genetically related means, whether that means they conceive naturally or they use IVF. If you use the premise that there are other children in the world, that premise would have to be applied to all situations. However, you cannot tell a couple who could conceive naturally that they can't have a child because there are other children in the world waiting to be adopted. That would be infringing on their reproductive freedom. That premise, the infringement upon reproductive freedom, would then also have to be applied to couples who want to have a genetically related child through cloning. Therefore, it is morally permissible to have a child through cloning. The greatest concern people have when it comes to the ethics of cloning for any purpose is whether or not the process would be harmful to the clone. The good news is, right now, cloning isn't actually possible. Chinese scientists have tried and they failed. So, it's not really a pressing issue as to whether or not it's ethical to clone humans. However, if it does ever become possible, I hope I've convinced you that the process would be morally permissible.